We're going to begin the tractate of Gittin, the tractate of divorce. And we'll see, by the way, that it spans over many different kinds of division and divorce. So, for example, many halachot, many practices that we carry out for the sake of peace, are taught in the Mishnah of Gittin. The stories about the destruction of the temple, the the separation of the people of Israel from the land of Israel, are taught in the Gemara in Gittin. And of course, we'll see, by the way, right the way through the tractates, both of Gittin and of Kiddushin, both of divorce and of betrothal, that the sages perpetually make a parallel between relationships between husband and wife and between the people of Israel and the land of Israel. So while the Mishnah of Gittin is 9 chapters and it explores, questions of get in many from many different angles, it's going to explore other areas as well, but particularly other areas related to separation or to peace. Now, the Mishnah is based, the halacha is really based on two verses, or actually 3 verses, but kind of two of them come together. And it's worth looking at those just before we get into any Mishnah. And actually, they're both from Devarim. Well, of course, Devarim really is the sefer that teaches kind of real technical halacha, I guess. So we're not surprised we see these in Devarim. Moshe is getting the people of Israel ready to go into the land. They need social structure, so they need divorce. And he sees, we're in chapter 24. Ki kach ish isha uvala v'hayim lo timtzachein beinav. A man takes a wife and marries her, and she doesn't find favor in his eyes. Ki matzava ervat davar, because he's found some unseemliness in her. There's some davar. This word's very important, and we'll come back to it. So what does he do? V'chatavla sefer kritut. He writes her a bill of, well, it's translated here divorce, but the word means cut. He writes her a bill of cutting off, a document of cutting off. And we'll see that the document has to be written, and we'll see that the document has to make complete separation. So I've translated it here as divorce following Safaria, but it's really a document of cutting off. That's what a get is. It makes the recipient completely free. V'natan biyada, and he gives it into her hand. She has to receive the get. V'shicha mi beito, and she leaves his house. V'yatsa mi beito v'halcha v'hayta le'isha, and fine, and then v'hayta le'ish acher, and then she can get married to somebody else. She's completely free. Now we mentioned the word davar. He finds some davar, something about it. There's a reason why he initiates the divorce. And divorce, by the way, can only be initiated by the man in halakha. This is one of the problem, we're still suffering from this problem today. This is one of the ways in which divorce is created. It's an imperfect setup. But it requires a davar. And elsewhere in Devarim, actually 5 chapters earlier, we learn a halakha related to witnesses. We need 2 witnesses. One witness is not useful for most purposes. Now we'll see in a minute in the first Mishnah. In fact, for some purposes, we do use 1 witness because it's important. I mean, in the eyes of the sages, it's important that women are able to get divorced. So we do sometimes use 1 witness, but in principle, 2 witnesses are required. And this verse in Devarim, in Deuteronomy, also uses the word davar. Al pi shnei edim, or al pi shelosha edim yakum davar. A davar, a thing, a matter. Same word as we had in the text on divorce. A matter, a thing, a davar is established in the mouth of 2 witnesses or 3 witnesses. So we're going to have 2 or 3 witnesses witness the get. The get has to be written, it has to be given to the woman, and it has to have 2 witnesses. So let's keep that in mind now, and let's just look at, we're just going to look at the first two Mishnayot. We're going to just start very gently. Hamevi get mi medinat hayam. Someone who brings a get from abroad. So, gosh, well, that's difficult. We've learned already just from the verses that the husband has to give it to the wife. Well, what if the husband and the wife are in different places, different cities, we'll see, or different countries? And so a get is routinely given by a messenger. And we'll see this causes all kinds of difficult problems. I mean, what, for example, if the get is given by a messenger and then cancelled? Is it a valid get or not? So we can see there are complications when we transmit a get by messenger. But we need to know that it was properly written. And actually, for this purpose, in fact, for this purpose, we're going to take one witness. We're going to take one witness that it was properly witnessed by two in the first place. So let's go back to the Mishnah. Hamevi get mi medinat hayam. Someone brings a get from abroad. Now, for practical reasons, the messenger will bring the get. We're not going to bring the witnesses. So the messenger is going to declare. Tzarich sheyomar, the messenger must declare, Befanai nichtav ubefanai nitchatam. In my presence it was written, and in my presence it was signed. I.e., the witnesses aren't present with me now, but I testify that I saw those witnesses, I saw the get written, I saw it being signed in the presence of witnesses. Rabban Gamliel says, Af hamevi mirakam min haheger. Even someone who brings it from rakam or from heger. This is somewhere in the east. It's actually associated sometimes with Petra. Petra is the age-old rose-red city, half as old as time. It's just on the other side of the Arava in the south of the Jordan. So it's a Nabatean city. So it would have been active actually. It would have been active in the time of the Mishnah. The Mishnah would have known about Petra. So even someone who brings it from Rechem, which seems to be a border town, and Rabbi Eliezer says, Afilu mi Kfar Ludim lelud, even from Kfar Ludim to Lud. Kfar Ludim is just outside the land of Israel. And the Gemara raised the possibility that the reason we're doing this is not just distance, but perhaps people in these places don't understand how to write a get properly. So maybe you're anxious about the distance. Maybe we're anxious about the knowledge of the Batei Din in these places. For Chachamim Omrim, but the sages say, Eino tzarich she'omar b'fanai nichtav u'fanai nechtam, eila hamevi medinat hayam. So the sages say that this declaration, in my presence it was written, in my presence it was signed, is only required from someone who brings it from abroad. Or vehamolich, someone who takes it abroad. So either way, either to Eretz Yisrael or from Eretz Yisrael, we need a declaration. Vehamevi mi medina li medina bi medinat hayam, and someone who brings it from one province to another province in foreign lands, so from place to place. Sarich sheomar b'fanai nichtam nichtav u'fanai nitchatam. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel omer afilu me hagmonia lahagmonia. He's using a Greek word here, which feels a bit like hegemony, and that's why I've translated it. It really means jurisdiction. Even someone who brings it from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. And these actually might be close places, but under different rules. And again, there's a sense, the Gemara, maybe we're talking about distance here, or maybe we're talking about standards. It's not quite clear, but Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel seems to be talking more about standards. When you bring from one jurisdiction to another jurisdiction, you have to say, look, this get was properly written. And Rabbi Yehuda then is just going to clear up a little bit the geographical boundaries. So Rabbi Yehuda says, Rechem le Mizrach Urakam Kamizrach. So the east boundary is the east boundary is Rechem, and Rechem is included in the east. So, but beyond Rechem, you need to make this declaration. Me'ashkelon ladarom, ve'ashkelon ladarom. From Ashkelon southwards, and Ashkelon is like the south. Me'ako latzafon, from Akko northwards, and Akko is like the north. And Rabbi Meir says, Akko ke'eretz Yisrael lagitin. Akko actually says, Rabbi Meir says that Akko is actually inside the land of Israel. So in other words, it's not from Akko, it's from the boundary of Akko outside Akko. So those are the three boundaries. And of course, the fourth boundary is to the west. But we don't need a boundary to the west because that is obviously the sea. That is obviously the sea. And the Mishnah doesn't need to tell us that if it comes from, well, if it comes from over the sea, it's clearly from over the sea.